I think we're actually live. A few technical difficulties here. Welcome, everyone, to our live stream show where we showcase amazing Australian women speakers so you get to see the huge amount of talent available. And so we can shift the stats from 30% women speakers at events to 50%. My name is Rachel Pietsch, and joining me today is the fabulous Kristi McVee, who is an ex-police detective and a child abuse prevention expert whose mission is to highlight, advocate and stop child sex abuse. Through CAPE AU, she offers online safety courses, speaking engagements and educational resources like Operation Kids Safe and Conversations with Kids cards. Her goal is to equip individuals with the knowledge to create safe environments for children aged 0 to 18. So join me in welcoming the delightful Kristi McVee. Hi, Kristi. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rachel. Well, I just quickly told you I'm in mid house move right now, so anything, anything to get out of moving furniture, really.
Yes, well, I think this was really great timing on our part.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
So all that aside, I am very fascinated by reading about your job description and the history that you have, doing what you do. So, can we start with how you ended up doing what you do?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird story because I actually didn't have any aspirations to become a police officer when I was a child. I didn't have any thoughts around it. But when my daughter was 9 months old, I saw an ad in the paper for, to join the West Australian Police. And
Mm.
and I thought I could do that, but everyone I told laughed at me because I'm only 5'1". I'm really short, and so they thought I was joking. But I thought when they laughed at me, I thought, just watch me. So
Yeah.
it took me a couple of about 18 months, and then I became sworn into the West Australian Police on the 25th of January, 2010. So my
Oh,
daughter was nearly 2 years old at that stage, and yeah, I didn't exactly go into the police to deal or to investigate child sexual abuse, but I ended up becoming a specialist child interviewer a year after my daughter was after I joined, and my daughter was only 3 years old at that stage,
yeah.
and I realized just how prevalent child sexual abuse is.
Yeah.
And from there, I became a detective after 4 years, and I put my hand up to be a child abuse detective. And
Mhm.
yeah, I pretty much investigated child sexual abuse for almost my whole career, with a few little short stints throughout. But when I left the police in 2020, I just realized just how little people know about this
Yeah.
subject, and how we have this concept in our mind that it happens to other families and it happens to other children, but in actual fact, 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before 18 years old, and over 90% of that is by someone known to the child. So
Yeah.
you know we need to be aware, and we need to have that awareness. And
Yeah.
so I wrote a book called Operation Kids Safe, as you mentioned, and through that book I realized that I thought, in my mind, when you write a book, you think, oh, right,
Mhm.
I've done my job.
Yeah.
And then I realized that people actually need to hear what I had to say not everyone learns through reading. So I started speaking on the topic, and 5 years down the track from retirement, here I am.
Wow. And how often do you speak?
Not as much as I'd like.
Yeah.
But I do get some opportunities to speak at conferences. I'm going over to Queensland next month, actually, to speak at an early childhood conference, and
Oh,
my topics range from speaking about, obviously, in person child sexual abuse,
mhm.
and then also to online child exploitation and the risks there. So I do a lot more online child exploitation speaking,
Yeah.
especially to schools and things like that. But
Mm.
my passion is obviously child sexual abuse prevention, education, and awareness. So I
Yeah.
like speaking on all of it, but yeah, gives me an
Yes.
opportunity to flex my muscles a bit.
Oh, yes, yes, and your experience right from the get go. I mean, you entered into working in this area very quickly in your police career,
Yep.
and so you had a chance to really get to know what's actually happening. How did that affect you? Did you find that you'd crack the SADs really easily? Because that must be such a burden to carry at times.
Yeah, so I guess if you haven't heard of what a specialist child interviewer does, it's a person specifically trained to get the evidence of a child aged between 3 and 18, or a person with special needs, or and basically that evidence is for court. So it's a recorded interview. It has to be done in a specific way, and I did that for nearly 9 years. So with regards to that, I guess it was a long time where I was hearing the devastating impacts of child sexual abuse and abuse. And it did end up with that I was diagnosed with PTSD in the last year of my career in the police.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, my daughter, who was only nearly 12 at the time, she said to me, "Mum, you're not the same mum I remember. I don't want you to do this job anymore." And that was the turning point for me. Was, I wanted to stay in the police because I loved doing what I was doing and helping people and helping children especially. But she was more important than the job. So she was the turning point. And so I went in and resigned the next day,
Wow.
so, but obviously that passion didn't leave me, because I've spent the last 5 years building a business and building and educating people on this. I'm very vocal on social media. I'm very vocal in keeping educated and educating others. So it did leave its mark, but I think I've turned that pain into progress and into doing what I can do. And in actual fact, I feel like in doing this work, this prevention work, I can actually prevent, I can do so much more than when I was in the police. Everything you do in the police is reactive. Whereas when you're, literally teaching people how to identify red flags and warning signs of predatory behaviors and abuse, you're actually got the chance to prevent abuse.
Yeah. So you're impacting people on a more broader scale. You've got further reach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So, what happened with your daughter telling you how she felt was just, it needed to happen in a way, because it got you onto the next leg of your journey.
Yeah, and everything that happened, I mean, it wasn't an easy journey after the police. Anyone who's dealt with any kind of mental health battles, it's, when you're, because it doesn't matter if it's trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter what the trauma is, whether, I mean, I lived with a lot of vicarious trauma from hearing what I heard, but, the body doesn't differentiate between trauma that happens to you or trauma that you see or witness. It's just trauma in the body. And it doesn't matter if you've lost a pet or you've been sexually abused. The body just it doesn't differentiate between traumas. So the interesting part about that is that, I went through this heightened, anxiety and all of these mental health challenges to begin with. Then I went through the depression that comes from being really, really heightened and then dropping down into this depression. But it's just made me stronger, and it makes me able to understand what victims, survivors of child sexual abuse and abuse go through. And I hope that I do them justice in that I can be the spokesperson for their trauma and what they go through, because victim survivors of child sexual abuse actually have a higher rate of mortality in middle-aged, higher rates of mental health illness, higher rates of addiction and substance abuse. So, and it's not their fault that something like that happens to them. So
no, I think you're a wonderful advocate, because who else is talking about this? What do people say when you tell them what you do?
They usually go very silent and don't say much at all. They go silent and they just look at me like, "Oh, wow, oh, that's a really tough job." And I guess I'm the best equipped for it. I know both sides of the coin. I know, in actual fact, the probably everything that I did in the police and everything I've done since, I was also not only interviewing children and investigating child sexual abuse, but I was also charging offenders and then managing child sex offenders when they were released from prison. So I've had such a broad range of experience in this space. So it just gives me that little bit of, I can walk the walk and talk the talk, but I still get people argue with me over it, but it's usually because they just don't understand that, the breadth of experience I've had.
Yes, exactly. And, it's not out of disrespect. It's just out of, naivety, being ignorant, because,
It's a hard
yeah, Oh, yeah. So is it difficult to find speaking gigs because of the subject that you talk about?
Yes and no. So a few speaking, a few organisations that I have spoken to have been like the family court.
Yep.
And in actual fact, I find that people working within like the family court system, the child protection system, there's still a lot of things that they don't realise, because
Yeah.
when you're in those environments and you're seeing the same thing, the same stories over and over again, you kind of get tunnel vision, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
even in the police, I can look back on my career and realize I had tunnel vision at times where I didn't see the bigger picture.
Yep.
So they can often get tunnel vision and not see the whole story. And so for me, when I talk, I want to open people's minds up to the fact that it's not as simple as he said, she said, or, and the other thing that I try really hard to represent in my speaking is that children are the perfect victims for this type of crime, because most people don't believe them. In fact, the statistics say that only 1 in 3 adults will believe a child when they tell them that they've been sexually abused,
Even these days.
even these days. And it's and
Wow.
often because the lack of there's generally lack of evidence. It's only the child's word versus the person who's perpetrating the abuse. The perpetrator has a lot to lose in these cases. It's really hard, and a lot
Mm.
of children never really feel a sense of safety after that. So
Wow.
my whole purpose is to remind adults that it's our job to protect kids regardless of what you believe and what you schools that I sometimes present at. It's really important, and a role to play than what they think they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel that there's so much more awareness that needs to be generated?
Well, let's put it this way. I wake up every morning, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, my brain buzzing, full
Mm.
of information, full of things that I think I need to say and how what I need quite regularly. This is my soul's mission, and it's everything up until this point has got me to here where I am, where I can create a platform where I can speak publicly and speaks clearly about the issues. And one of the bonus points for me is that I'm not a victim survivor myself in the traditional sense. I didn't I was attempted to be groomed as a child, but I didn't ever be wasn't ever sexually abused. So I don't have the same level of emotion around the topic, which allows me to be the clearer voice for this subject.
Yeah.
Although I also have the compassion and the empathy
Yeah.
that goes along with knowing what I know. So unfortunately, a lot of advocates and victim survivors, they really struggle here because it's quite a triggering subject, and it
Yeah.
triggers people who don't speak loudly and proudly about it like
Yeah.
I do. So
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think I will be doing this for a very long time. I can't see myself slowing down. In fact,
Yeah.
my platform's getting bigger and bigger, and I'm very
Oh,
blessed to have that opportunity to speak out. And it just
great.
really, it's really sad when I, ask questions or I share facts and,
Mm.
and statistics, and the amount of people that share their stories within my comment sections or my messages. It's just so prolific.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yes, and it's got to be something that's recognised. It's like, I mean, I don't like to see ads on TV of poverty or animals being mistreated, but it's a reality, and we need to hear about it. So, what are the kinds of audiences that you would ideally like to get in front of?
Yeah, so any kind of, I mean, obviously, I'm most of my target audience online is parents and
Yep.
caregivers, because I think one of the things that we don't realize is how much power we actually do have in regards to protecting kids.
Mm.
And I want to empower parents and caregivers with the tools that they need to, first of all, hear and see what I saw. I used
Mm.
to say this all the time when I was writing my book. I just wish I could like take my brain and put it in everyone, and they would know without
Yeah.
thinking twice about what I'm saying or what they're hearing.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't do that. So the next best thing is to tell people. So a lot of the education I do online is for parents and caregivers, but
Mm.
organizationally, I think my it's really anyone working within a child setting with any child based organization. you know, any organization where, you know, families are involved, or any organization that has that
Yep.
focus towards families and children. The
Yep.
thing is that if we have, and it could be sporting groups, it could be, you know, child
Mm.
protection agencies, it could be, like I said, the family court, you know, the family
Mm.
court, we can all learn more. But I think one of the things that I want people to know is that it's not me standing here telling you you're doing it wrong. It's me here telling you, this is what I saw, this is what I know, and
Yep.
this is what you can do. Each of us can
Yep.
do a little bit more to understand the people we're dealing with every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there a like a standout experience or moment that you've encountered when you've been presenting?
Oh, well, there's heaps actually, but you know, sometimes I'll be presenting to a group. I did a presentation to some chaplains, you know, last year,
Yeah.
and there was chaplains aged in their 20s all the way up until their 70s, and chaplains work within school settings, aren't they? So
Yeah.
they're like counseling children and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I often have, when I do my presentations around these topics, I often have, you know, people come up and disclose to me their own sexual abuse.
Mm.
And you know, I had a 70-year-old chaplain come up to me and disclose her sexual abuse and tell me that she
Mm.
hadn't told anyone. So you know,
Oh,
it can be very triggering for, you know, very
yes.
triggering for people. And I always give a
Mm.
content warning, and I always remind people
Mm.
to look after themselves first, and to realize that their health and well-being is more important than hearing what I have to say. But when people come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm so glad you're talking about this. We never talked about this when we were kids," or
Yeah.
we never felt safe to tell anyone," and you
Yeah.
know, the fact that they're unburdening that onto me sometimes, even though it's obviously a large thing to share, it's also
Mhm.
very freeing thing to be able to speak
Yeah.
freely with someone about.
Yes, and they obviously feel safe enough to disclose that with you.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah, you're not gonna judge them. You understand exactly what's going on, what's gone on.
Yeah, I would never. I mean, it's never a child's fault. It's never a child's responsibility either. You know, it's the adults and the people around the child that is responsible for protecting kids, and to try and,
Yes.
you know, help make them feel better, and to protect them. So I definitely hope that my presentations and my workshops and things come, you know, empower people to think more differently about it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you are. Is there a couple of thoughts that you would like to pass on to our audience in regard to what we can do to help this fight this fight of prevention?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always talk about awareness being one of the first,
Mm.
you know, the first steps in, you know, preventing abuse and protecting kids. The
Yeah.
thing is that we don't know what we don't know, and we can't do better until we know better. So, you know, being open to hearing something like what I talk about, or to look into the statistics and look into this. And awareness isn't just hearing statistics, which are very scary, and especially, it's also knowing what signs to watch out for. So one of the key things that I talk about is,
Mm.
you know, predatory and warning and grooming behaviors, and to identify them, and basically just to know that, you know, sometimes people don't realize they're being inappropriate, but
Mm.
also to know when inappropriate, when to, you know, speak up on behalf of children or behalf of people, because grooming and inappropriate behaviors, you know, they look very similar, but
Yeah.
the attitudes and the reactions of the person who is doing it is very different. So
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, I always, you know, awareness is number one. Number two is also teaching and learning about body safety rights. Once upon a time, we just told children, you know, you've seen and not heard, you
Mm.
do what your adults tell you to do,
Exactly.
you know, whatever. And so now today we don't teach that to our kids, because that's really unsafe, and it should never have been like that. And so
Yeah.
we teach children that their body is their body, you know, they get to choose what happens to their body. And we can teach body safety rights and body safety education from as little as 0. So from birth we can be talking about what we're doing to them, we can be using these tools. And I talk very heavily about body safety as one of the key foundational tools that we can teach kids
Yep.
to help them identify when someone's acting inappropriately or unsafe.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things that most people don't realize is 30 to 50% of all child sexual abuse is actually perpetuated by other children. So there's harm on child on child harm. So,
Yeah.
and what we can see from teaching body safety is children are less likely to be harmed, but they're less likely to harm others. And, children aren't born evil, and they aren't born, naughty or whatever. They just don't know. So we need to teach that as well. And thirdly, I think the main thing is that we always listen and believe children, always. And it's whether we're not sure, or we can't believe that of the person that they're saying this is happening with. The thing is that child believes that child, so we need to take that seriously and do our due diligence and protect kids.
Yeah. That's amazing. It just makes, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking there is just so many areas that this covers, and it must blow your mind sometimes with, how much information you need to impart. But at the same time, it's one day at a time. Do you have a team of people that travel with you, or is that the dream?
It's my husband's dream. I had to travel with me and hold my bag. He says he wants to be my bag holder. Not yet. I don't have a team of people. It's just usually me. I up until recently, I've only just taken on some staff or like some employees to help me with my social media and my running of day-to-day business, because I have tools like the Conversations with Kids cards, and I have on online safety guide to help parents talk. One of the best things about, I guess, what I impart with people is how to have those conversations, because I spoke to thousands of children over the 10 years. No topic or subject was ever taboo. Nothing they ever said to me ever really shocked me. So I've picked up a few tools along the way on how to talk to kids about this stuff. And I think, being able to impart some of that with parents and with caregivers and with educators, etc. Like, it can be really daunting to have those conversations, but when you have a few tools, you can easily do it, and nothing really phases you anymore. So, I've got all of these tools in my tool belt, as well as, online tools that parents and other people can use. But I think that's one of the things. And I don't have a team yet. Well, a massive team yet, but it'd be really nice to have people. Because I do everything.
Yes. It'll be great to train up more people to be out there talking about this, and having further reach, because it's such an important area. And
it's interesting. It's interesting because I've actually had universities in Wales contact me about coming to Wales and speaking, and that they were studying my content from TikTok and Instagram because they really loved what my messaging was. And so, that's pretty cool as well. You asked about, things that have really blown me away. The fact that people all over the world, and I get people from the US, from the UK, from all different walks of life and countries contact me about my content and what I'm sharing and imparting. So, the fact that something that little Kristi in WA can, share this with the world basically is pretty amazing, really.
Oh, yeah. Thank goodness for, how connected we are technologically. I think the world is in an incredibly different place compared to 100 years ago. We think so differently, and our brains are going so much quicker, I think. But that's a subject.
That's a good and a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of, contacting you, how can people contact you if they would like to learn more or inquire about hiring you?
Yeah, so they can find me either on my social media, which is Kristi McVee. And funny enough, my TikTok is TikTok Cop 81. Most people don't actually use TikTok, but I get a giggle out of that because I chose that name, or my daughter chose that name like 3-4 years ago, and I keep saying to her I should change it. She's like, "No, don't."
That's gorgeous.
And so that either on my socials or via my website, which is Kristi McVee, or I just had a blank, cape-au.com. So KristiMcVee.com, go straight to my speakers page as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wonderful. Well, I have just thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you, Kristi. It has been a delight and a pleasure, and my world has been opened just by just by hearing about, not only your history, but what it is that you have to say about what we need to be aware of. And yeah, I really hope that a lot of people, see this video and see that you mean business. You can walk the talk. You can, very much back up what you say. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the rest of the world, that what you're doing is a fabulous job. And you rank really highly in the good human, on the good human scale. So yeah. Oh no, thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
I can't sleep at night if I'm not doing this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's why I know I do this
Mm,
without even if whether I was,
mm,
I love what I do purely because it's making a difference and
yeah.
our kids deserve it. So thank you,
Oh
Rachel.
yeah. Oh no, you're welcome. Thank you. So I hope, to our audience, I hope you've enjoyed this interview. The show goes live every Thursday at 11 a.m. on YouTube and will be uploaded straight to LinkedIn and Facebook after this. If you need a speaker, then please go to womenspeakers.com.au, and you don't have to pay a commission. You can contact your preferred speaker directly, and you can search by topic and location. You're also welcome to post a request into our Facebook and LinkedIn groups called Australian Women Speakers. Now, if you are a speaker or want to be, sign up to our directory and get found. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kristi, and for the rest of us, and as well as you, let's all have a great day.